Force Day parade?
Yeah, it'll basically be threefold. One is that government last year said we didn't have enough money to fund the state. We needed a 2% VAT hike. They didn't get that, but they got a tax hike basically through the back door by not adjusting income tax brackets for inflation for the second year in a row. The Minister for Finance also warned Parliament in November he may need to do a further tax hike next month. So that doesn't make sense. You're broke or you have money. The second thing is that 372 million rand could have employed a lot of doctors, a lot of nurses, a lot of teachers, a lot of police officers. People would provide a valuable service to society. But if we just said, leave that money in the Defence Force, which is fine, the Defence Force has been crying for years about budget cuts, it's struggling on so many fronts. We look at many of our aircraft, naval ships, land vehicles not working, not being serviced, lacking spare parts. We look at our Air Force pilots struggling to accumulate enough flying hours in a year to maintain the pilot licenses. Similarly, problems around combat readiness training for other members of the Defence Force. We look at our Defence Force personnel deployed to the DRC, to Central Africa, not being given the weaponry, the protection, the support they need, many dying as a consequence. If you look at in the DRC, we had to intervene last year to make sure the soldiers were paid the deployment allowances, even though when they were paid, it was only half of what they were entitled to. We speak about the role of the Defence Force, which is to secure the borders of the country and so forth. But they're struggling because they got so few soldiers deployable to go and cover our land borders. They need resources, they need vehicles, they need material, etc. We could have utilized that money to buy drones and to train our soldiers on how to man the drones and cover a much greater part of our land borders. That could have been a useful thing, or to employ more naval ships to protect our seas from poaching. I think the most painful thing for us is that we have received reports last year and this year that soldiers in our bases now are receiving 1 meal a day, a single meal a day, because the Defence Force is so broke. Not 3, which they should be receiving, and which they themselves are paying for in terms of the deductions from the salaries. 1 meal a day. And for us, that's unbelievable. A parade is a luxury. You don't have to have it. Yes, as part of the military culture. It's fine for morale of the forces. It's a good publicity, public relations, recruitment strategy to attract young people to come and join the military when they leave school, when they leave university, etc. But if you can't feed your soldiers, then your priorities are completely messed up. And I think for us, it's simply abominable. It's unacceptable. If the budget was about 20 million rand, 30 million rand, I don't think we'd really care. But 372, it's just an abomination. And to give it a comparison, lastly, is that the State of the Nation address takes place once a year. It's albeit a smaller event logistically, but it does include a military parade. It does include the deployment of soldiers for security purposes. It does include a flyover. And yes, all of it at a much more modest scale. Perhaps that's a good thing. But Parliament has listened to society and has deliberately kept the budget to 3 million rand and less. These chaps, they don't seem to get that message. 372 million rand for us is just an abomination. It's a waste of money. It's not going to improve Defence Force capacity. In fact, it's going to frustrate soldiers who are going to ask, so why do you have money for this, but you don't have money for 3 meals a day?
The response from some of the Defence Force and government officials is essentially they're making an argument that ceremonial events like this one can boost morale and public awareness, as you mentioned, of the SANDF. How do you respond to that perspective in correlation to the money that is being spent? Do you think it justifies it to some level? And do you see any value of holding this kind of parade where if there was a budget that was justifiable for it and not the one that was proposed by the SANDF?
No, we've got no problem with with the military holding parades. That's part of military culture, part of building discipline with the drills, etc. There's a sort of morale, camaraderie element to it. Military needs to recruit young people all the time, every year with the new intakes. It's a way to attract young kids. And one can imagine, hosting it in Toyondo. It would be an exciting event for that, medium-sized town. Young kids could go and have a look at it and be excited. The problem is the price tag, 372 million rand, is just outrageous. There's no justification for that. It could be done at a far more modest cost of 20 million rand, 30 million rand, whatever. But 372 million, no, that's just completely tone deaf. Um, and government is going to irritate society if they come with these kind of extravaganzas. If government comes to Parliament next month, says tax hikes of any type upon working or middle class families, it's going to fall very badly. A few weeks ago, government gazetted an increase, yes, inflation linked for members of Parliament. You combine that and you combine this, you're talking R1 billion, money which is not really necessary. So I think it's something the government should think about. It may be difficult to cancel that because I think some soldiers have already been deployed, albeit that this thing's only in the 21st of Feb. But definitely they can tone it down significantly. Definitely they don't need to send 7,000 soldiers. Definitely they can send 1,000, whatever. But they need to cut the budget allocation. It's just simply outrageous, and it's going to irritate the very taxpayers who fund the state.
And has there been any kind of engagement that has been made with government, with the SANDF in itself, on looking at where the budget can be reduced, and what has been the response from that? Is there debate that's on the cards in Parliament that's been placed also?
Not yet. I mean, this thing came out, was exposed on Sunday. We did our statement. There's been quite a bit of interest from society. We've had quite a bit of outreach to us from workers, from people involved in the defense force, at different levels, even contractors complaining they haven't been paid since mid last year. But we are going to write to the president, to the ministers for defense, but also the minister for finance, because it's not also fair to Treasury, to government, finance department, to have departments screaming and crying for money. Treasury has to balance that between schools, health, hiring police officers, employing teachers and nurses and doctors and so forth, and then to witness this kind of extravaganza. So we're going to write to the two ministers and the president asking for their intervention and asking that can we tone this down substantially? We need to really be seen to have government being responding to society's frustrations and not to be seen to be cavalier with public funds.
Lastly, before I let you go, Matthews, the local government elections are upon us. Just to segue a little bit, COSATU mentioned, I think, sometime last year that it was yet to decide on which alliance partner to back in the 2026 municipal elections. Are we still at that point? Is there still no clearer picture on which horse you'll be backing on?
Well, it's a Congress decision of COSATU. Our current standing resolution from our last Congress is to support the ANC. Since that time, the SCCP has decided it wants to contest elections. So we'll have to discuss that at our next Congress, which is September this year. But so currently, right now, the status quo remains of supporting the ANC.
All right, there we go. Matthew Parks, COSATU Parliamentary Co-ordinator. Thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
There we go. I think very, very concerning the fact that the SANDF has outlined 372 million rand in defense parade. It's just mind-boggling. Looking at the state of the SANDF, the fact that we essentially we have a broke defense force, that can't defend our borders. It can't train properly. I mean, so some of the members of the SNDF are even having one meal per day in their barracks. But you have 372 million rand that is currently going to be used just for one day for a military parade out in Toyando on the 21st of February. What do you make of that? Do you think military parades like this one are important? We see other countries across the world have them. Countries like China, North Korea, they're big, they're pompous, it's a show of strength. But from South Africa's point of view and perspective, what show of strength is there when reports are coming out almost every day on the state of our South African National Defense Force, our Air Force is in disarray. No, Navy is in disarray. But you essentially have so much money, 372 million rand, which will be spent on just pomp and pageantry, which is useless when you think about it, because the true state of the SANDF, not the picture that you want the world to see or want South Africans to see, but the true state of the SANDF is rotten to the core. It is limping, if it's not on its last legs. So it'll be interesting to see if some of COSATU's considerations are going to be, I don't know, are going to be taken into consideration by the government. I think there are other political parties also, opposition parties. What should I say? DA is not an opposition party anymore. They're a member of the Government of National Unity, but they've also came out and criticized the SANDF's management and readiness. And I think, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there's going to be a debate of some sort. There's going to be, I don't know, a kind of allocation of funds for this parade, and just the broader defense budget review. The budget speech is going to be coming out in February after the State of the Nation address, and it'll be interesting to see the allocation of the SANDF and if they'll be pumping a bit more money into that, because you can't have a country like ours that's essentially naked. Just looking at the state of our borders, looking at organized crime in the country, we don't have a defense force. I mean, there's even calls for the president, and I heard some days ago that he's considering this, to call on the SANDF and to deploy them in parts of the Cape Flats and some of parts of the country that have high stats of crime and gang violence. We hope for that. We hope to see that kind of intervention, but you're not gonna see that kind of intervention when you have a broke SANDF and you have money that could be used for those kinds of missions and deployments. 372 million rand, I believe, would be more than enough. I don't know. Those that have a bit more knowledge in the budget of the South African National Defence Force. But come on, 372 million rand. Get your priorities straight. Deploy the SANDF to the Cape Flats, to parts of Gauteng, to the CBD in Johannesburg, and use that money. I'm sure South Africans would appreciate that kind of intervention more than a parade in Toyando that no one is going to even watch. You as a taxpayer, myself as a taxpayer, I think would appreciate that effort more, seeing boots on the ground in the Cape Flats, in Johannesburg CBD, in other parts of the country where crime has essentially gotten out of hand, and them coming out and saying this is 372 million rand. It was supposed to be allocated for a Defense Force Day parade. We're not going to be doing that anymore. The Defense Force parade will be us cleaning up the Johannesburg CBD, cleaning up Cape Flats, and making sure that South Africans are safe. This government of ours, man. Sometimes things don't just make sense. Priorities are so skewed. Or maybe that 372 million rand is going to go to a tender somewhere. Somebody will get the tender to house the SANDF in Toyando, to provide them with meals, to provide them with the accommodation, as I mentioned, new uniform, and there'll be kickbacks, as is always the case. Really concerning. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, news and views continues.